Hello students, in this video we're going to work together in this discussion that asks, does being nice to AI make it smarter? In order to do this, we're going to use the free version of ChatGPT, and it is important that you don't log in so that hopefully ChatGPT forgets every time you ask it something, and therefore our observations are independent. So I want you to open ChatGPT, go to chatgpt.com, and you can ask anything. As you ask ChatGPT something, I would like for you to know the correct answer. And then I want you to ask with a short, neutral tone. Think of the simple question. But then I would like you to be very kind and polite. For example, hello, chat, if you don't mind, could you please help me translate this sentence? Or could you please tell me what is the z-score of a 95% confidence interval, or anything you want? These are some examples that I gave, but you can use any question you would like as long as you know the correct answer. Okay, so let's make a simple example for I'm thinking about The Office, the show. So I want to ask ChatGPT, what is the episode of The Office when Jim proposes to Pam? Jim proposes to Pam. Oh Lord, it really says a lot of things. Okay, so once I have the answer, I copy it, and I'm going to go to Excel, and I am going to make a spreadsheet. In this spreadsheet, I'm going to write the first variable will be the attempt. This is my first try. The answer that ChatGPT gives me, the type of question I made, whether if it's correct or not, and the number of characters. To do this, for example, here that was the question. So now I am going to copy the first answer. I copied here, so that it comes the whole thing. Enter. And now, okay, let me make it short because this occupies a lot of space. The way to make it short, by the way, is to come here and just pull it up like that or like that. So now here I have the answer. This was a short question. It is correct, yes. And the number of characters I get by using equal len, length. So it's equal to len and then the number of the cell. So this is B3 and I get that. This is what I got from previous exercises. So let me just delete it because this is going to be a new spreadsheet. Okay, now let me just close ChatGPT and reopen it. ChatGPT.com. Okay, welcome back. Do you want to log in? No, stay logged out. Now, dear chat, would you be so kind to tell me what is the episode in The Office when Jim proposes to Pam? I appreciate your help. Let's see what happens, right? Oh, it's searching the web. Okay, let's do this. So here I copy the answer, I go to the answer, then the type is going to be kind or long, whatever you want. It is correct, and the number of characters, you can just copy the function is 600. Okay, now let's leave and start all over again. Okay, what can I help you with? Let's do a short answer. What is the, okay, let's say, without searching the web, what is the episode in Jim proposed? Okay, so this is the answer. Oh, again, we need to copy it here. We need to make it small so that our data set is not a mess. Now this was the short question, the correct answer, and the number of characters is this. And we keep going, right? Since we want to do hypothesis testing to know whether if ChatGPT is better when you ask kindly than when you just ask plainly, we need at least 30 observations of each. So take your time, ask 30 times whether or not the question you want. Make sure that 30 times it's kind, long, and 30 times it's just short. You can even have the question somewhere and just copy paste it. Let's suppose you have your complete data set. You have the tries, you have the answers, the type, whether they are correct or not, and the number of characters in your response. So you're gonna come first to the homework, hit the reply button and say, hey, I'm asking this question and I think it's super interesting, and so far ChatGPT is being crazy or not. You post whatever you are getting. Then that's for Sunday. Since you might need a long time to make 30 observations, whatever it takes you, I'm gonna give you till Sunday to have all these trials until you have completed this beautiful data set. Once you have your beautiful data set and you have posted what you got, so that would be step 5, you graded, post your question and your interaction. So you post it on Sunday. By the way, this is what I got from your introduction, some of the words that were repeated the most. Once you have your question, then I want you to make a hypothesis test. So we need to know whether or not being kind to AI makes it a better analyst. There are two tests that we can do. One would be quantitative and the other would be qualitative. The quantitative one would be measuring how many characters ChatGPT gives us with each different prompt. We need a hypothesis. The null hypothesis is the number of characters in the answer to the short question is equal to the number of characters in the answer to the kind longer question. The alternative hypothesis would be that these numbers are different. In short, the mu in 1 it's equal to the mu in 2, the mean in 1 it's equal to the mean in 2, and the alternative hypothesis would be that the mean in the short question is different from the mean in the long question. I am not sure that ChatGPT would like to give you more or less, so that's why I say different. Now, another relevant test would be to evaluate if ChatGPT is correct or not. So let's see if the answers are equally correct whether I ask kindly or not. The null hypothesis is that the proportion of correct answers is the same for both, and the alternative hypothesis is that the answers vary in correctness depending on how I ask. So the proportion of correct answers is different for each prompt. In short, the proportion in 1 is equal to the proportion in 2, or the proportion in 1 is different from the proportion in 2. In order to do these tests, we're going to use this spreadsheet and use R. In Module 9, we were evaluating a mean compared to a number. In this case, we're going to be evaluating two means from two different groups. This is a t-test. So first of all, what we need to do is to go to environment and import our data set from Excel. You browse your computer, look for the document, and open your data set. Now check that what I did was to make sure that each variable has one word to not complicate my life. And I deleted the question that I had there, I deleted so that the first thing in A1 cell is just the word try, and it's clean. Once you have this, then below it says import, so I import. Now you can see that I have that discussion here, and I create a new document in RStudio. I go to the upper left where it says file, and I say new file, R Markdown. I put the title AI discussion, HTML, and I said okay. And this is what I got. First, this is given. This is just for the R markdown to be created afterwards. But here, the first thing I'm going to write is to import my data set. So this is exactly what we did by importing it, but telling R in my R markdown to remember. Read my Excel file. Okay, so I have my data set, and now I want to test if both means are equal, if the number of characters in both is equal. I need to know if my observations are independent. I'm going to assume they are. We already established our null and alternative hypothesis. So I'm going to t-test if the number of characters are different by type, using the data AI discussion, and the alternative will be two-sided. If I do this, I'm going to try to run it, and this is what I get. I get a two-sample t-test. I get the t statistic, the degrees of freedom, and this is the p-value, which is, as you know, this is scientific notation, and this means 7 points to the left of the decimal points. So this will be 0.000003. This is a very small p-value. Apparently, yes, there is a true difference in means between group kind and group short. What I know is that the mean in group kind is 196 characters, and the mean in group short is 111 characters. In other words, when I ask ChatGPT the shorter question, it gives me a shorter answer. That might be good or bad, depending, but that's a result. Perhaps it's more interesting to know whether if they get a wrong response, being kind, or the other way around. To do that, we're going to conduct a proportions test. We're going to compare the proportion of correct answers in one group with the proportion of correct answers in another group. And this is the code to do that. However, we need to count how many correct responses we had in each type. And to do that, first of all, I organize the data by data, sort, and filter. And when I sorted, I used type. So to put all the short versions together in case you didn't put them together at the beginning. And once I had all the kind together and all the short together, then I used a simple sum to add how many ones I had. In this case, I had 24 in the kind long questions, and I had 27 correct responses for the short version. And since I have 30 tries in each case, my n is 30 in each case. So this is the code for the prop test. You say x is equal to 24 and 27. The first experiment had 30 observations and the second had 30 observations. Again, I am not sure whether if I am expecting one to be bigger than the other, so my alternative is two-sided. And correct means that we're not going to use the Yates continuity just to not complicate our lives at the moment. And we run the test, and this is what we get. So far, what we have is that this p-value is bigger, even though the proportion in one is 0.8. In other words, for being kind, we have a fewer proportion of correct response than when being succinct, when being short. But this difference is not statistically significant, at least to the 95% confidence. So these are our results. So I would like now you to come and share your result with everybody else and say, well, to the question that I asked, I obtained that ChatGPT is better or worse or the same, or I cannot conclude statistically, or I can conclude statistically. It depends on your results. And basically what we would have proven is whether or not being nice to AI make it smarter or the other way around. Or we have no idea. We might need to conduct even more experiments. A colleague of mine conducted 3,000 of each experiment to conclude. And by the way, it concluded that when being kind, sometimes ChatGPT makes mistakes. Boing. Okay, well, enjoy and let us know what you got.